So a new video, or I guess I should say an old video of Erika Kirk has surfaced, and it is her in a documentary called Black Start. That people are saying they're kind of categorizing this or describing it as a CIA video. But let me just go ahead and play for you the clip, and then we'll talk about what this is. But it is actually quite eyebrow raising. Here it is.
We have 5 major threats that make our grid extremely vulnerable that we've presented to congressional officials. 1 being cyber, 2 being hackers, 3 being physical threats, 4th one is solar EMP, and the 5th one is man-made EMP. So the concern that we have is that we put out this critical information, and when we go over this risk analysis, they hear what we're saying, but they don't want to take action. Take action.
Well, there are 18 critical infrastructures in the United States: food, water, transportation, communications, etc. All 17 of the others depend on electricity.
If our grid goes down, you can't cook, you're not going to heat anything, you can't run any of your medical supplies, you can't talk on your phone, you can't take money out of a bank, and we turn into total chaos.
If this happens, the system stops.
If a transformer is taken down, we have to order it from Germany or China. It's going to take a year.
Up till recently, there were no comprehensive protective solutions available.
We know what the solutions are. They're not expensive. They're not difficult to employ. We just need the political will to do it and the follow-through on the part of the electric utilities to get it done.
The White House is protected from an EMP. The Congress and the CIA and the NSA, all of the areas that need to function in the government are protected. So why can't we be protected?
Around some of these facilities, you don't have much more than a chain link fence to keep people out. Now that seems absurd to me.
I think it is absurd when we now know that attack on as few as 9 grid substations could bring down all 3 major interconnections for the United States grid.
If the power goes out, you get the generator, and if that goes out, you get another one. There's never been a plan for what happens after that.
The director of the National Security Agency, Admiral Rogers, came out and said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Okay, so this is a documentary, and the documentary is called Black Start. It was from 2017. Some people are saying, well, this doesn't mean anything. Erika Kirk is in it, and she is clearly giving some sort of a presentation about a potential EMF attack, an electrical grid attack. She's giving a presentation on this, and it's just her acting. It's just, it's a movie, and she's acting. No. This is a documentary, not a movie with an actress, a documentary. So what is Erika Kirk doing in 2017 in this documentary, seemingly educating a group of law enforcement professionals about potential attacks on our electrical grid? The description for this movie, Black Start USA, says this film examines a very real threat of the electrical grid going down either from natural or human causes. All civilization is based on the electrical grid, and without it, 8 out of 10 people would not survive a long-term loss of electricity. There are ways to prevent this, but neither the government or power companies seem interested in it. So this movie is not a CIA movie. However, what people are pointing at and why they're calling it a CIA film is because, for one, it is government, it's Black Start, which is, that refers to the process of restoring an electrical power grid or a power station or an industrial plant without relying on external electric power transmission networks to recover it. So that's what that term stands for. But for her to be in this documentary, and she's in it with Peter Pry. Now, Peter Pry was an American national security expert, best known for his work on the threat of EMP attacks and the vulnerability of the U.S. electrical grid. He died in August 2022 at the age of 68. But he worked in several U.S. government roles, including as an analyst at the U.S. Army, U.S. Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, and as an intelligence officer at the CIA, specializing in Soviet and Russian nuclear issues. So that is why people are saying, wait a minute, she's sitting there with the CIA guy, but he did then later serve as the executive director of the EMP Task Force on National and Homeland Security, and which is a congressional advisory body focused on protecting the United States from EMP, cyber attack, and related threats to critical infrastructure. It's also important, I think, to note that Erika Kirk's mother, both parties want you to believe they're working for the people, but let's be honest, Washington is bought and paid for. Big corporations in Wall Street get bailed out while working Americans get left with higher prices, shrinking savings, and endless promises that never materialize. The system is corrupt, and when it breaks, they won't be the ones paying the price. We will. That's why I put my trust in something outside of their control. Physical gold and silver from American Hartford Gold. Precious metals are real, tangible, and they've held their value through every economic collapse in history. You can have them delivered straight to your home or secured in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. American Hartford Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews. And right now, when you call and mention my name, Kim, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver with your purchase. So call 866-584-3884 or text Kim to 65532. That's 866-584-3884 or text Kim, K-I-M, to 65532. Don't wait for politicians to fix a system they benefit from. Protect yourself today. Erika Kirk's mother was a government or is a government contractor and specializing in these EMP attacks and the EMP field. So Erika likely got this job of apparently, I guess, educating others, law enforcement and government agencies on EMP attacks, maybe through her mother and her mother's connections and her mother's government contracts. It's all very weird. So people are pointing at this video and saying, this is just another thing to raise suspicion. But there's other things about Erika, and I hate to be talking about a grieving widow, but she hasn't really been grieving. I mean, she's been out on stage in front of everybody. She was at football games over the last few days. Her children apparently are, I would imagine they're grieving and they're with somebody while she's out on stage all the time or out at football games. And it's really kind of unclear, but here she is. I think people are pointing at mostly with the hypocrisy with Erika. When she was over the last several years kind of been putting on this, I'm a good Christian woman and I'm just all about home values and family values and conservative values. But she's been caught in many lies. And one of the values that she put out there was women should stay home and raise their children. And then as soon as Charlie Kirk's killed, she ends up taking over CEO of the big organization and out on stage all the time and out at events and not with her kids. So that right there, people are pointing at as strange and hypocritical, that you think that the person would remain consistent in their view. And they bring this up because it just adds to the greater suspicion around her. Not saying that she was involved in Charlie's death or anything like that, but also not saying that either. People, how dare you attack a grieving widow and say that she might have killed her husband? But widows kill their husbands all the time. There's plenty of women sitting in prison right now for killing their husbands. Just pointing it out. It happens. It's not like so off the wall to think that. But one thing that people are pointing at is just a lot more of her, a lot of the inconsistencies and the lies. And I think that's what people are pointing at, wanting to know more about what is Erika's, who is the real Erika? She said that before she met Charlie, she was basically just this prim and proper girl that didn't party, didn't drink, didn't date. She was just waiting for her Prince Charming to come along. And people are pointing out that might not be true. Here she is partying in that time period that she said she wasn't drinking and wasn't doing anything. She was just a woman that was waiting for her conservative husband to come along. She also appeared in a reality TV show for dating when she said she wasn't dating ever, and yet it's documented on television that she was dating.
How do you two ladies know each other?
We were in Miss USA together.
Oh, cool.
So she was Arizona and I was Miss North Carolina.
I want to meet somebody with the same beliefs. I'm like a really big Christian. I'm like...
So you wouldn't meet him at church or anything?
It's tough because, like, I watch it online.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that's like, hey, I'm going to go to church on Sunday.
I go to 2 different churches. It's tough to be a believer in the city.
Yeah.
I think you're a bright light in a very dark place.
So let's go grab a mojito? Yeah. We'll go grab a drink.
Oh.
And then she went to go grab a drink. And she said she didn't drink.
Apparently.
It's like genuinely refreshing to have a conversation with somebody that like has the same beliefs. You coming in here just like owning it.
I appreciate that.
I'm really attracted to it. Can I get your number? Like,
yeah.
How do you text with those nails that long too?
They're real.
I bet you give like a mean back scratch. I mean, I don't even know how long you've been in New York.
Gosh, New York. I moved here 4 years ago.
How old are you? Can I ask you that?
Okay, so there she is dating. There she is drinking. And that's fine. She's young. She's beautiful. She should be able to do that. But the problem is she said, I didn't do that. So there's inconsistencies in the story. But one thing I want to point out, and let's go ahead and put on the conspiracy theory hat for a second, shall we? One thing I want to point out is she said in there, I go to 2 churches, right? I go to 2 churches, she says. I have a question, a conspiracy theory question. Is Erika Kirk Jewish? Is that why she goes to, was she going to 2 churches because she's Christian, she's going to a Christian church in order to, who knows, but was she actually Jewish? Did she convert to Judaism? Now, I have this suspicion for a couple of reasons. First of all, Charlie started doing a lot of things that were Jewish, right? That were like notoriously what Jews do with their faith and not what Christians do and their faith. So he was, for example, the Sabbath for him was on Saturday and not on Sunday. That's weird. Christians celebrate the Sabbath or observe the Sabbath, I should say, on Sundays, and Jews do on Saturdays and Muslims do on Fridays. But Charlie was, for whatever reason, observing it on Saturdays. He was saying things like Shabbat Shalom. He was doing all of these things slowly, and since he had married Erika Kirk. Now, you might say, well, that doesn't mean she was Jewish, but it also doesn't mean she wasn't, and she could have very well been kind of hiding it. And let me explain why this might be the case. Turns out, Erika Kirk had a Jewish uncle. Now, her father's sister. Now, we don't really know a lot about Erika Kirk's dad. Some say that he was also a contractor with the government, that he helped rebuild and helped build Israel's Iron Dome. That is a possibility. And the reason is we now find out that Erika's uncle was a prominent Zionist Jewish man who married her father's sister. So her father's sister married this prominent Jewish man. And not only is he just a prominent Jewish man with a lot of money, but he's an ultra-Zionist. He actually helped rebuild Zion's Gate in Jerusalem, which is this ancient gate that was destroyed during one of the wars. And her uncle paid to rebuild this. So he is not just some, your everyday Jewish guy going off to synagogue. He's actually a prominent Zionist and not only just a prominent Zionist, but here is an old article. This is from 1995. And this is in Deseret News, which is a Mormon news publication, saying the kinship between Jews and Mormons is being stoked at the new Center for Jewish Studies at the Utah Valley State College. Utah Valley State College, by the way, is where Charlie Kirk was killed. It's become a university, but before it was a big university, it was called Utah Valley State College. Through classes, lecture series, and public forums, the center is trying to build bridges of understanding between 2 faiths, which both assert a relationship to the House of Israel and have history shaped by persecution. The impetus for the center came from Marlene Telford. She grew acquainted with Jewish culture and history while working in the garment industry in California. 6 years ago, after moving to Utah, Telford was asked to teach a gospel doctrine class on the Old Testament at her Mormon ward. As a youngster, I felt it was the most boring book I'd read, Telford said. All I could remember were the begots, because it says that a lot in the Old Testament. Begot this and begot that. But she was mesmerized by Jewish history as she researched material for her class. Telford whet her interest in the subject by completing a major in Near Eastern Studies at BYU. Telford then figured she was so entranced with Jewish history other than Mormon that anyway, it goes on to say, let me just go ahead and find this. I don't want to read the whole thing to you. But board member Jack Solomon, that's Erika's uncle, who has lived in Utah 15 years, said there's no place in the world where the Christian community has been so supportive of the Jewish people and Judaism. In fact, Brigham Young donated the land for Jewish Community Cemetery. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints also donated money to help build the synagogue in Salt Lake City and in 1903. So there's a lot of things that Mormons have done on behalf of, to benefit Jewish people. It's very true. They do have a very strong relationship. But Jack Solomon says this community has been very, very interested in Judaism and the Old Testament. The center will satisfy a worthwhile purpose so both groups can get to know more about each other and their common heritage. So Jack Solomon was on the board of the group that created this Center for Jewish, Studies at Utah Valley State University College, which turned into university, which is the very university Charlie was killed. So that is an odd connection. And her uncle being Jewish just kind of makes me wonder if at some point Erika converted and kind of secretly converted, but then was imparting many of those customs and traditions onto Charlie. I know she goes around wearing a cross, but it is very possible that her family it is possible. I'm just saying, these things are all strange and they add up to it is very possible that she was a very big Zionist and that her family was very big Zionists. And, that's all I'm just going to say about that. But it is all very, very, it's all very bizarre. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can watch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.